Alright, so this is very much a response video to DJ Granville in regards to his feelings on gamma Fi and delta Fi. So I'm kind of hoping to establish some clarity between different quadrants and different types, and maybe get a little dialogue kind of going amongst people in the Socionics kind of community to kind of do a little crosstalk and share perceptions, information, their viewpoints over the overall Socionic structure, as well as just anecdotally their view on different types and things like that. So just to kind of open the door to some communication that way. All right, so as far as that particular video, understandably, it's trying to get an SLE's view on gammas and deltas and so on. All right, so it's coming from that perspective, which is kind of what I wanted anyway. So there are a few major points that I think stood out to me. Hopefully I can remember them all. One of them was this concept of like gamma types setting boundaries. A lot of talk of this like boundaries, like having a hardline boundary on people, their relationships, who they like or don't like or whatever. As a gamma myself, I would say that's not really true, or I don't really relate to that at all. I don't understand where that's coming from. It's not from what I've seen. And the reason I say that is because that boundary talk sounds more TI-ish going on. That sounds like what you'd expect of a beta user, or some kind of really just a TI user, period. Why? Because boundaries sounds like laws. It sounds like a rule. It sounds like, okay, if you do this, I'm going to respond like that. And I have already predetermined my response. I've predetermined what actions are acceptable or not acceptable. I'm establishing almost a law, kind of saying, all right, here's the nature of our relationship. I'm spelling it out, making it clear. This is where the rules are. This is where the boundary lines are, etc. That's a bit too clear cut. Reminds me a little bit of something that Jack from World Socionics kind of said, that if you can tell someone's values, if you can articulate what their values are, what they believe in, you can write it down on a sheet of paper, what their boundaries, rules, so on are, then that's TI. That's something that anybody can understand and share. It's very clear. For an FI user, it's not clear. FI is a very subjective element, period. It's completely subjective. It's just, how do you feel about that person over there? It's your feelings and yours alone. It doesn't have to make sense. Considering that FI is also going to be attached to TE always, everything is going to be very case-by-case basis. So it becomes very hard for any FI TE individual to be setting up boundaries and rules or anything like that, because they never hold really hard. They never really set a hard line on, this is what the rule is, this is what it's going to be, and these are the consequences if you break it. No, we don't set any hard lines on anything. We just don't always enforce it. We don't always enforce it the same way we said we were going to, so we're very inconsistent, and that's why we don't really have a whole lot of TI going on. So there really isn't much of that. All right, so that's that point. The other points on, like, something that was I think really makes a big difference was that you were mentioning that you don't really catalog or these interactions, is kind of what you said. It's the words you're using. You don't really catalog the interactions, so you're not really remembering specific interactions with people that you have already kind of typed, and you know what their type are, and so you can kind of figure out how you're relating to this person live as it's happening, or at least remembering how it went. It's not fresh in your mind. It's kind of hard for you to do it, it sounds like. That I think is a good example of just differences, let's say, with like an SLE, especially an SLE or an ILE that is FI polar. They're not thinking about that kind of stuff at all, which is more than likely where they're going to stumble into problems with people in relationships, because they're just not taking in these little more personal, nuanced things into account. It's not there on top of their mind. Whereas for me, I find it quite easy to immediately sort of bring up stories or think of individuals that I have already typed, or that I believe anyway them to be a certain type, and I can tell you my feelings, my response to them, how interactions have played out in the past, and like so on and all that kind of shit. Like it's very quick for me to think about that kind of stuff, and I think that shows a great difference, right? SLEs and so on, you guys are thinking of it in this TI, very mechanical way, as you said. For me, I'm not. I'm thinking of it more in a very FI sort of way, in a very FI and TE kind of a thing, very, very pragmatic. By the way, at this point, I would consider myself an SEE. I've had a little bit of a slippery ride there trying to type myself, especially within Socionics. But at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with SEE. So anyway, back to it. Third thing, understandable that yes, overall gammas tend to be more harsh in their character assessments. They tend to be the quadra that tends to be just hard on people. But that's also an extreme. So do we do it? Yes. Are we the type or the group that tends to do it more and more noticeably than the other types? Yes. But we're not always as extreme as writing people off all the time and going, this person's of no value to me, fuck them, I'm just carrying on. No, it's not always going to be that way. We're also not always so extreme of being so harsh on some people. We may just say, you know what, I'm not a fan of that person. I don't like what they're about. I don't like what I've seen of them and what's going on. I'd rather just stay away from them or just keep my distance or whatever. And that's it. That doesn't mean I've completely shut the door. I still keep my eyes open and kind of observe, and that person may show me something that I didn't see before, or maybe I changed my mind on them or something, whatever. There's still a crack in the door there for that person to still kind of like show me something, essentially. So it's not always quite so extreme. Now I get it between each type within Gamma Quadra. It does vary. I would say the ESIs are probably the most extreme, given that they're leading with FI. They're probably the ones to be the most likely to be very harsh in their assessments and make it very known that they like you or they don't like you, or tell people, I can't stand that guy, fuck him, let him, I hope he gets hit by a bus. They'll probably be the ones to just write people off really quick. But the others are not as extreme. It's gonna kind of vary. It's gonna vary pretty much as the FI gets further and further away from being the base function. Having said that, at our worst or at our extremes, there are cases where we might run into certain people or situations where we really can't stand somebody, and in our minds anyway, we feel like that person has earned it. They've earned this assessment, and at that point, it's kind of like, listen, fuck him, I hope he gets hit by a bus, or I'll fucking help the bus hit him. Like, there is levels where somebody crosses that line. Again, we're not TI people, so we don't really have a definitive line. We probably can't tell you. I couldn't tell you exactly what that line is. I can give you examples of people who've crossed lines and reasons why and all this kind of stuff. And again, even in my examples, I'm giving you like these anecdotes, these very case-by-case kind of situations, but it's not like there's an exact rule or a hard line that I'm going to follow. that each and every time somebody does that, I'm gonna do this. Like, no, it's gonna vary a little bit depending on circumstances. But there are some general areas that you cross that line, and we're gonna have problems. Problems are gonna happen, and it's gonna, once you cross that line, it's very hard for you to come back from it. So the idea of, oh, we're having conflict as soon as you change that behavior, we're good. No, because from our point of view, it's like we kind of have come to we've come to a conclusion in our mind that it's not a momentary thing. We can understand the difference between someone being a jerk, being an asshole at that moment. They're just, whatever. They're having a night and they're just not their best. We get that. In fact, we can do it with our friends, the people we do like. We know that people we like are not always awesome. Sometimes they annoy you. Sometimes they do dumb shit. Sometimes they have character flaws, and you know it. Yet you forgive them. You just kind of keep going. Cover for them, help them, whatever. It doesn't matter. So with all people, we can tell, like, look, not everybody is going to be. Not everybody's going to be perfect all the time. Sometimes people are going to annoy you. They're going to be jerks. They're going to be assholes. That doesn't automatically mean that we're going to write them off. But basically, we've come to a place where we have concluded that this person, this is kind of what they are. This is their general character. And that's kind of the key thing with F5, is that we're trying to assess that person's entire character. What is that person all about? What is their intent? What do they mean? What are they trying to get done? What are they after? We're trying to really figure out and size up that person as a whole being quickly. So once we've reached that point, we've sized you up and we've kind of figured out what you're all about, what you're into, not into, all this kind of shit. We've come to that conclusion. Okay, you're somebody I can be friends with, I can work with. You're somebody that I'm kind of in the middle, somewhere indifferent maybe, just kind of, whatever. Or you've hit that point where you're an asshole and we don't like you too much. And then there's levels of asshole. So, you can call it the tiers of assholery. So, tier 1, hey, you're just a fucking asshole and we just kind of keep our distance from you. Tier 2, hey, we're going to tell it to your face, you're a fucking prick. And, maybe leads to throwing hands. And then maybe after that, you get to that, other level of hell where now we turn into the Punisher, who I believe is pure fucking gamma. Definitely like an SFP gamma. And we turn into the Punisher, and we just now rain fucking hell and death and destruction on people, fast and brutal. That's it. Since I mentioned characters like that, there's also some TV characters, movie characters that are probably good examples of, at least for gammas, in my opinion. Again, I would say that Punisher is definitely a freaking gamma. Maybe debatable whether you want to say he's an SCE or an ESI, okay. But to me, that's gamma. There's a guy right there who, it's personal what happened to him. And because of that, he's now enforcing his pain on all those he feels responsible. And when questioned, he doesn't have any kind of a grand plan or strategy. There's no clear rules to why. He's just assessed that some people are shitty human beings and they don't deserve to live. And he punishes them. That's pretty much it. Spartacus from that show, another guy who just wanted freedom and just wanted to be free for himself and his wife. That doesn't work. Okay, he punishes the individuals he thought were responsible for that. And then it just kind of escalates from there. Avatar is hot right now. I think actually the main character, Sully, from Avatar, that could be an SCE to me. He shows that kind of SE quality, that impulsive running around. And you don't see any sort of real TI usage. It's more of his personal relationships and feelings towards people, and that's kind of why he jumped ship. Anyway, and then kind of go on some more. But so some differences there to just kind of wrap this up. I heard you're mentioning like betas in general are very collectivistic, and that's very true. That's right. Betas tend to be more, I'm against that group, I'm against these people, or I'm for these people. This is my group, this is my team. As long as you're on my team, we're cool. You know, for the most part, like, we're cool. We're just against the other team. Gammas are more individualistic. Gammas are like, yeah, you're part of my team, and that's cool, that's fine, but I'm still evaluating every member of my team as an individual. So if you're part of my team and you wear the same jersey I wear, all right, fine. But if I still assess you to be an asshole or that you're just a bad person, then we're going to have problems. And I don't care that you wear the same jersey as me. I don't care that you're on my team. I got a problem because your character is lacking. So there's pros and cons. Of course, gammas are extremely independent. Again, because they lack that TI usage, it's very hard to know exactly where those lines are, what makes you a good person versus what doesn't. It's very unclear. That's kind of a pain in the ass for many types, and it makes sense. But the pros is that, again, we are making case-by-case assessments. We do evaluate the individual in front of us, and we are not bound by some rule, some law that this has to be done that way. No. Just because you're on the same team as me doesn't mean that automatically you get a pass and that we're cool because you're on my team. No, I don't care if you're on my team. If you're a piece of shit, we're going to have problems. If you're a fucking serial killer on my team, we're going to have fucking problems. Like, you know. So that's probably one of the benefits for FI users in particular, but I would say more so gammas, because deltas tend to be much more forgiving and looking for options and possibilities and all that other stuff, whereas gammas can be more decisive. So anyway, again, this is all kind of, like I said, in an effort to get some crosstalks and dialogue, expressing different points of view, expressing how to describe the Socionics theory as it's kind of written, just the theory of it and structure, but also bring up its application, which for me, of course, is big. I'm a big TE user, so to me, a theory is only so good as it's applied. You know, if your structure is all nice and tidy, but I don't see it being used in the real world worth of shit, nothing seems to add up or make sense, then it's garbage. So I'm very much on board with trying to demonstrate its application in reality. It's going to talk about the typing with Curtis as well as an example, but you know what? Yeah, but that's another moment. You know what? Actually, never mind. I'll just throw it in there last second. So there's a guy there who's been very rough, very contentious, very all over the place, probably an EIE with a lot of FE going on. But I would say that, again, as an FI user, I could definitely say that there's a guy there who's definitely rubbed me the wrong way just from a distance. Some people might say they find the FE funny. Yeah, they find all the FE antics funny. You know, I guess they don't take it personally, whatever. To me, I wouldn't say that. I don't know if I take it personally or whatnot, but I don't find it funny. I don't find it funny at all. Somebody jumping on a debate and first two sentences like out of their mouth, they're accusing you of being inauthentic and lying and yelling at you and so forth. It's like, oh hell no, I'm turning this shit off. Like fuck that. I'm not getting into this discussion with you on this. You know, this is just no way to start a debate. You know, like at a minimum, that's probably the easy thing. I would just like, the hell with this. I'm out. But Otherwise, then I'm just getting heated, and now I'm in the argument too. And it's like, all right, you want to come at me like that, bro? Let's go. So. But I could say that I don't like this attitude. I don't like this individual, and I'm sizing up this person based on how they're behaving, even though, it's somebody that I'm only looking at through a screen, like whatever. But I've seen enough of them that I'm getting a certain view of their character, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. So, anyway, thank you for making a video in the first place when I asked. Again, I'm glad to have this kind of crosstalk all the time. So I felt this was the best way to kind of respond in kind and give like a good, thorough explanation of what I wanted to say rather than just typing something in the comments box. So anyway, peace, thanks.